Make Fun Network. It's Charles and Sam on the top 5 of death. Matt's not here cause he can't catch his breath. And Will's not here because he definitely can't stand Matt. Alright, hello everyone. And welcome to this week's episode of the Top 5 of Death. I'm your host, Sam Haddix, and I'm here, as always, with Charles F. McDonald. And as the theme song, which was written way ahead of time, definitely told you, Matt is not here because he has, once again, walking pneumonia, something like that, something he should probably be hospitalized for. And Will's not here because he can't stand Matt. At least that's the narrative I'm going for.
Yes. Well, the Rumble party really went poorly for them, you know. Will forgot to bring over the trophy, and Matt's wife won it. So,
this is the big news is that we got to all four of us, hosts of the Top 5 of Death, got to be in the same room at the same time, in person, which is pretty cool. But Charles, is your first time meeting Will and Matt. Tell me your first impressions of those two gentlemen.
It's good to know, especially in this day and age, people are huggers. So it's nice to not have to clear that beforehand to be like, I'm a hugger, are you? So, yeah, that's nice. But Will is a lovely human being in person. So it's exactly what I expected.
Despite his persona.
Same with Matt. I thought Matt would be shorter.
Oh, is that Kaylee talking at the top of her the absolute loudest volume she can? Upstairs and down the hallway in my house. Okay.
But yeah, I thought Matt would be shorter, you know, but it says Matt thought I would be taller. So
you're meeting in the middle. Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice. I guess if I can talk from a fan perspective. So I guess I'm directly talking to Kevin Weaver if he ever gets to meet Matt in person. Mm-hmm. It's not that groundbreaking, you know. He's the exact same person you hear on the podcast.
That is true. I will say that about Matt. He's definitely consistent. Yes. And what you see or what you hear is what you get in person.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was fun. Like, we had dinner. That was real nice. Everyone got to meet everyone's significant others. Jess was here at home. And then, we had the Rumble party, and that was really fun. I haven't watched any form of wrestling with that many people in a long time. So
right.
It's usually like me and my buddy Alan. Jess will watch some of it, and then Alan's wife will be there as well. And that's usually about it. So to watch it with like 12 people, I think. I didn't count. Yeah. That was pretty fun.
There was a good crew there, and it's fun. What I've noticed is that a lot of people in my day-to-day life do not watch wrestling, but some of them will go out of their way to watch it with me because they know that it means something to me, and they get a kick out of it. So whenever I have a small party for WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble or something like that, it's always with people who never watch it. They're there just to see like the enjoyment that I have like a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I did the same thing for my good buddy Ken. His WrestleMania is the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That did just happen last night.
Which was on last night, and he was like, "Do you guys want to watch the Super Bowl?" And I was like, "No, I don't, but I know you really want to, so come over and we'll watch it." Yeah. And we did, and it was a good time. But I think that's typically my case with people watching wrestling. So in order to to actually have like a bunch of people around who are really, really into it, it's fun. It's definitely a lot of fun. Even though I got taken at the cleaners for $80 worth of gambling on it. I didn't walk away with a single cent.
No.
Nope.
You didn't even get a jobber pick. So
nope.
Yeah. But that money goes to other people, so people enjoy it. So
yeah, it goes to a good cause. It goes to a charity.
Write that off on your taxes.
Yeah, it goes to the Help Matt Have Another Child charity.
The Super Bowl was last night, so you watched, and you don't watch football. Um,
Correct. I understand the
I
very basics of football, and
yeah.
then beyond that, people are like, "Oh, well, this thing happened." I'm like, "Did it?" Because it looked like a bunch of guys fell on top of each other, and the ball moved about 3 feet down the field.
hmm
That's
Uh,
the amount of my understanding.
3 feet, so 1 yard down the field. You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I get
Um,
it.
yeah. I used to watch football religiously, and then I don't know what year I just got tired of it. Like I just kind of it took up your whole Sundays, and like if you played fantasy football, you had to pay attention to everything going on. So I just kind of got bored of it, and then I started watching wrestling again way more often. I'd watched Formula One a good amount of time, and I was like, I got to drop one of you. So goodbye football, because you're the same thing every year. I'm always disappointed. So you're gonna sit over. So I stay like separated from it, and the only football I've watched are if I'm at like my dad's or at like a family function and it's on. So I only have like base level knowledge of what's happening in the NFL. Um, so watching the Super Bowl last night, I at least knew the storyline coming in. You know, uh,
The storyline.
the storyline that I was like, didn't we see the Super Bowl only a couple years ago? Which we did. Eagles and the Chiefs played in 2021, two, one of those Super Bowls, literally the same Super Bowl.
Yeah,
um,
three, I think, but
sure,
I'm no historian.
yeah. um, but yeah, and I was happy to see the Chiefs lose because as someone, I don't even like the Eagles. I'm a Cowboys fan technically. I say technically because I don't follow closely anymore. So it was nice to see the Chiefs lose because I prefer it even if it's my own team in there and my team's like, we're going for like a 20 Pete. Like we've won 19 times in a row. We're going to the 20s. I would prefer to see something new happen. So it's nice that the Chiefs lost. I also don't like Taylor Swift. It's very obvious in my past discussions. So the fact that that also happened. But I think the real winner last night for me was the halftime show. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I loved it. How
I
did you feel about it?
I also loved it. I gotta say, like, I hate the music. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I can get into rap if like Eminem's a good example because like one, very understandable lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Two, generally there's a chorus, which like
Mm-hmm.
I really need to get behind. So I was impressed the fact that he was singing live. Like that was
Yep.
very impressive to me because he must have rapped 4,000 words in that,
He's very quick.
the
Yeah.
8 minute period or whatever, however long that was. And the choreography was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do anything like I kept thinking about a couple of years ago when they had like all of the early 2000s rappers on for the Super Bowl and they were like in this gigantic floating set of cubes or whatever. And I was like, this is the craziest production I've ever seen. Where this one was all choreography,
Mm-hmm.
just people walking around doing choreography and him rapping. Again, couldn't understand a word he said. Um,
Yep.
but I was still impressed by all that. My favorite, I tuned into I tuned in. Jesus, I opened up Facebook like afterwards, and the first thing I see was like, "Oh, that was the worst halftime show ever." And then like a
Mm-hmm.
comment below is like, "Yeah, how about you get like a musical artist that everyone likes next time?" I'm like, "Who is that?
Yeah.
Who is this magical person you're talking about?" Or
It's
like, let's
always the
go.
problem.
Right, exactly. It's like you want to go the opposite. Like, let's go with like, all right, let's go with the whitest like band possible. Let's go with Coldplay, and they did it 5 years ago or something like that, and people shit all over it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like there's not going to be one person that everybody likes. It's just
Yeah.
not possible.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool. Again, not my jam like necessarily, but I can really respect at least the calisthenics that went into it. What
Yeah.
what did you think about it, Charles?
Um, I loved it, but I'm not even like a gigantic Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm very aware of him as an artist. Like I only know like his major hits that have come out. I do know in his last album he has switched to that, like, I don't want to call it mumble rap, but it is a little quicker. It's a little lower. I can tell you even his mix on his album, it's a little iffy.
Hmm.
But yeah, the mix last night was not great. um but I was mainly invested in this performance. I knew going in, actually, I should say, I knew going in, this was not a mass appeal artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very select group of people, probably most people from our generation, and then who's after us? This Gen Z is going to be like the big fans of him, but he's not going to appeal across like Gen X all the way to the Boomers. So he is a very select group, but he was one of the biggest artists last year. He is undeniably an accomplished performer because not only is he like a multi-time Grammy winner, he's won a Pulitzer Prize. Like he's a legit lyricist, and that's what he's known for. And what he's most known for now is the fact that he absolutely like had a funeral for Drake's. I don't even want to say career, his life last night, because like I've been not closely following that feud, but I'm like, okay, this is interesting. We get some feuds in like music industry, nothing on the level of like Tupac and Biggie, obviously, but what did we have, like Nick Cannon and Eminem one time for a little bit, which that is not an even battle. Like Nick Cannon clearly won on the how many people can he have on this planet battle, but he doesn't have it in career wise. um but yeah, they had him and Drake had this back and forth, and then he dropped Not Like Us, and that is lyrically devastating to if you actually like sit there and read through it, not just the accusing him of liking children, which is kind of not a well-known thing, but there's a trend there that like he hangs out with underage artists a lot.
This is the A minor lyric that was
Yes,
sung last night. Okay.
which is the most cathartic thing I've ever. That's all I wanted out of that whole performance. Like, I just want to know if other people are going to do it, and everyone did it. And then the one thing everyone's discovered, and I even discovered, was shortly after that, you see someone crip walking on stage, and I didn't realize that was Serena Williams.
Oh, I I saw her legs first, and I was like,
Yes.
"Who is this woman with the gigantic muscular legs?" And Kaylee was like, "That's Serena Williams," and we're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And neither one of us knowing her history with Drake or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Apparently, they dated in 2016.
Hmm.
And then she has since then she's since did she married the Reddit founder?
Oh
I think.
God, I don't know.
Is she the one, or is that Venus? I don't know. All I know is Serena Williams is married, I think, at this point, and has a kid. And the only reason she was there was because apparently in 2022, Drake talked about their relationship and dissed her husband in a song. So she was like, "Oh, okay." But like, what an absolute burial! Because everyone's seen it. If you're listening to this, there's no way you've escaped him. Like, of seeing the image of him walking in a circle and then saying, "Say." Hey Drake, and he's looking right at the camera smiling. You're like, oh, he's about to destroy this Degrassi actor's rest of his career. So, but she did. And it was beautiful. Because does anybody really like Drake?
I wish I could tell you.
Yeah.
Again, don't know anything about him, but yeah, good on good on this guy for getting one over on him. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm on the biggest stage possible. Not getting paid for it because weirdly Super Bowl doesn't pay their artists, but
I forgot about that. And then the added caveat for that is not only did he just win 5 Grammys, not off of this song, but his album, but Not Like Us was a major part of it. I saw a reel of a comedian. I wish I could remember his name. He pointed out the fact that the Super Bowl halftime show can get nominated for an Emmy. So not only could this diss track win Grammys, it could now win an Emmy. And you know what? If he wanted to he should keep pushing it to get to the EGOT level.
yeah,
Because that would be
wins an Oscar for it in his
Why not?
portrayal of himself.
Yes. Just keep pushing it.
Yeah.
It could, down the line, someone like if Drake has a monumental fall from grace at this point, he could end up having his own like white bummer Oscar movie about himself, and it would be in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, we'll get A24 on board to produce.
I feel like they'll do anything at this point. They're always putting a movie out.
And listen, I'll see it. I'll see every one.
Hey, you're not wrong.
You just tell me, do you want to see the new A24 movie? And I won't ask what it's about. I'll just go and see it.
I saw Tim Robbins is doing an A24 movie.
Oh, that's the one with Paul Rudd?
Oh, that was in 2024. Never mind.
No, I think that's coming out. I think that they filmed it last year and it was on some festivals. It's like Best Friends or something. Is that what
They
it's
said
called?
friendship. Yeah.
Friendship. Okay, yeah, with Paul Rudd.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, obviously you'll be seeing that.
At
You
some
get the
point,
you get those two guys in an A24 movie. I'm definitely there.
it's gonna be weird to see Robinson,
Hmm.
Tim Robinson on the big screen.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be real weird.
Kaylee and I were watching the some of the Saturday Night Live, like the SNL 50 stuff that's on Peacock right now,
Hmm.
and we watched the 2 hour music documentary, which was incredible. Like,
I've only just started that one, so I've watched the other 4-part
okay,
documentary series as well. Yeah.
and then we were watching, the one where they're showing everyone's auditions from over the year,
God,
including
yes.
all the cast members that never made it,
Hmm.
and Kaylee's like, I can't believe Jim Carrey didn't make it on, or Stephen
Hmm.
Colbert, and she doesn't know much about the show, so she's still she's still like figuring out like, oh, this person was from Saturday Night Live and got famous there.
Hmm.
Like she had no idea about like Wayne's World was on Saturday Night Live, or like Night at the Roxbury, or like all these different skits that became movies or became pop culture phenomenons.
Hmm.
Um, but she's like, I'm surprised Tim Robinson was never on SNL. I'm like, he was. He was for I think a year or two, like not a long time.
Yeah.
But yes, he was.
Didn't they
Um,
show his audition on there?
they didn't show his, but I think they show like
A
they show a
glimpse of
clip,
it.
like a B-roll clip of him, like as they're
Yeah.
talking about something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was like, I swear I saw him in that documentary, which I don't know why they only did 4 of those. I would like more,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
especially because they did the whole. We loved the one on Cowbell, that whole sketch. I would love them to do more documentaries on that,
Mm-hmm.
on different sketches, because there's a shit ton of them that are way more than Cowbell that are also incredibly well known and famous. So, but
Well,
which
this
also the SNL 50th episode is what, this weekend?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's on. Wait, is it on Sunday?
50th I said 50th episode.
Well, yes, the 50th anniversary
Anniversary
special episode.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to say it was something weird. Like it's either on Sunday or it's like really early on Saturday. It's on like 8 p.m. or something. Um, Look it up. This episode of the Top 5 of Death is not sponsored by Peacock yet. Yet. Though to transition into today's topic, we are talking about the top 5 most obscure places we've been,
Yes.
and this is a very interesting topic that was posited today, and I was like, obscure places. I'm like, okay, I've been in a lot of places in general, but like, what's going to be like a weird and obscure place? And I was looking for one more pick to round up my list. So I'm just going to jump in and start with my number 5 obscure place that I've been, which
Yep.
is behind the curtain on the SNL stage.
Oh.
So I think I may have told like a slightly different version of the story a long time ago on the podcast, but my cousin April, super cool person. She worked on the Today Show for like 13 or 14 years or something like that. She was the set designer, and we were talking about people who had won Emmys, and I was like, oh, she's won an Emmy, which is wild. But when she was working at 30 Rock, basically, I would go to visit her, and she'd be like, "Do you want a tour? Do you want a tour of the building, like a special, just walk around with me tour?" And I was like, "Yep, I definitely want that," because like she just knows everyone, and everyone knows her, so it's like we'd walk around, and she'd be like, "All right, there's a tour group right there. Wait for them to leave." And they would leave, and she'd be like, "Okay, cool. Now go, and we can go and mess around on the set. You can jump on Conan's Star, or we can go into sit behind the desk on this show or whatever." So this, I think the first time that I went was 2008. 2008 sounds right, because this is when Conan O'Brien did have his talk show. He was on the Late Show. I think it was his last year or something like that on a late night. And so yeah, I got to like sit behind Max Weinberg's drum kit and jump on Conan's Star, and the star is basically the spot where they mark on the floor. I mean, you know this, but for our listeners, the exact spot where he stands to do his monologue. But then we got to go to the SNL set,
Mhm.
which was very cool. This is also the same tour that I saw the Muppet Pipes.
Oh, okay.
For those who might remember
You fondled the Muppet
the
pipes.
Muppet Pipe
Yes.
story, yeah. Um, but it was really cool. We're walking down a hallway, and she's like, "Pause here," and like, "Do you hear that music?" I'm like, "Yep," and she's like, "That's the Roots practicing." I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
that's cool."
yeah.
And so yeah, the Saturday Night Live stage, it's really really interesting because you see the person come out like behind the band, and that's where they always start. There's about a foot and a half worth of like backstage there.
Mhm.
It doesn't exist. It's like a plank of wood. And so you like walk out onto this plank of wood, and when it's your time, like they open up the curtains or you come out, and then you do the rest of the monologue like in front of the band. But that area behind the band, which is my number five, it was so weird standing here, be like, everybody stood here.
Mhm.
Like every celebrity in the world has like stood in this place, and it's like the least glamorous place you could emerge from.
Yep.
It's very much a functional TV studio. This is how wide we need for a human body to fit.
Mhm.
So this is how wide we're gonna make it. That show is just such an incredibly well run machine that like every single inch of that studio is like used for something. That big floor where they do the where the host will give his monologue, which is just an
Mhm.
empty space. When they're not filming that show, it's full of cubicles and people are working there.
What?
It's full of like modular portable editing bays,
Wild.
which is absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to 30 Rock before?
I've been outside of it on the ice skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Yep, it's quite
I've
cool.
never actually gone into the building. Never did Top of the Rock, any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um. The That's wild. I actually didn't even think about they had editors on staff for that show. Because the way they like the wild thing about that also revelation I had from that documentary was back before we had the internet,
Mm-hmm.
you only got to see this shit live, or if you caught it in syndication years from now, or you bought the best of DVD
Yep.
type thing. So I was like, oh yeah, they don't have an on editor. They don't have an on set editor like during More Cowbell. They don't have one. They're just running it live. They have a switcher, like director in the back, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one, and then they air that shit live on Saturday, and then they go, see everybody Monday. We're gonna do it all over again.
I mean, it's kind of
Like,
cool from an editor standpoint,
mhm,
or at least for someone that's doing the live sound, because you know how long it takes to edit video,
mhm,
and the fact that like, well, we're going to edit this hour-long show in 1 hour.
right now.
As it happens, it's got to be. I mean, it's such a specific skill, but like for a time saver, my God, it's got to be so much easier from that perspective to do something like that live.
Mhm. Yeah, and now probably all those modular editing bays are people putting up all the shit you see on Instagram and TikTok and all those
Hmm.
poor young editors who just wanted a gig.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I think it's since then too that you've had what the Lonely Island, and then uh oh, what are they called?
Please,
Do Not
is it
Destroy.
yeah, please
Yeah,
don't destroy or something like
yeah,
that. I've
yeah.
never checked other stuff out, but it's suggested to me on Peacock. So,
Yes. Their movie that they came out with was hysterical.
yeah.
I really like that. So I'm assuming their other stuff is of similar humor. But yeah, those guys are just like, oh, we're gonna make like a this short, and we have to fully like write it, pitch it, get it approved, film it, edit it,
Mhm.
everything all within like the space of this week or whatever, which is wild.
Yeah. The only other thing I've seen of that is, well, South Park did that.
Hmm.
But those are usually film. There's usually like, I think it's called like, I don't know if it still exists. I think it was a 48-hour film festival where you create, shoot, and post production like a 30-minute movie, something like that. And then it's a festival, and you submit it to try and win. That's the only other thing I've heard that's like comes close to that.
Wow.
So
There is something cool about kind of putting limitations on editing, something like that, because you have to make decisions.
mhm.
And you kind of have to work with your instinct and your personal taste level and not second guessing yourself and all that stuff. And I think that's how you get like a original cut of like Star Wars as opposed to the 1990s redo version where they make Harrison Ford walk over Jabba the Hutt's tail. Like you,
Oh my god.
you have to keep tinkering with something. If you have absolutely no deadline. Same thing with
And
making the Greatest Adventure. Like we said like, okay, we're gonna put out one a month. That's what we told the sponsors. And so
mm,
by the end of the month, if we don't have a thing out, then like technically we're like in breach of contract. So we're like,
yeah.
we're getting the thing out because we could work on it forever, and we
Hmm.
will for different reasons. But yeah, having deadlines is good for that sort of thing.
Oh yeah. As someone who does it for a living, which, oh yeah, I have an update if anyone cares. I'm working a gig for the next 6 to 8 weeks, so
Hell yeah.
yeah.
No
Um
longer solely an employee of the Dog Breath Foundation.
yes, just in time while we're on our break for that
Yep.
the greatest adventure.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Um but yeah, that's pretty cool behind the curtain of the SNL stage.
Yeah. So
Um
so Charles, you're probably one of my most well traveled friends. What was kind of your thought process when you were putting together your list?
um I tried to think of it of like, so I've been to, obviously I've talked about, I've been to a lot of national parks. I've gotten to places like that and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But those are all places I feel like you can just go like, oh, okay. Uh sure. Like I'm just off the top of my head, sure, I've been to the top of the Grand Teton. You can pay someone, I think like it's a couple grand now, and they will take you right up there in 24 hours and bring you right back down. It's not that hard.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I try to approach it of like, what are things I've been to that is not something that's easily achievable, easily like that you can do or even pay. This like the stuff I thought of like, oh, these are things that you would have to know to talk to somebody to be able to do this. So my number five is I can tell you three of my things come from the fact that I used to work a much cooler version of my job. I used to work in production as well.
Hmm.
I no longer work production because it's exhausting. Um, so my number five is I have been to the ornithology room in the Natural History Museum in DC. The ornithology room is not like oh, here's all our stuffed birds. The ornithology room is a giant, dark, cavernous room full of modular cabinets everywhere. And inside of them are all the other things they don't put on display um, to, you know, the general public, to the Smithsonian, because you can go to the Smithsonian, you can see all that shit that they have there, and some of that stuff never leaves, never goes anywhere. What they have in their museums is the tiniest fraction of what they have out in storage
Yeah.
in other places, and especially the Natural History Museum has several levels underneath of it, which sounds like sounds like a national treasure type thing, but it is several layers underneath. So the first thing that like came to mind was the ornithology room for me because it is a dark, gigantic room, and I say dark because they don't need to light the whole damn thing, but it is just. We walked in, and this guy was like, "Oh, cool! You guys want to see some stuff?" And he just starts popping open cabinets. Like, at the time, they had the last carrier pigeon. The carrier pigeon, I think you can see it now on there, but the carrier pigeon was something that we had native to our country. We decided to kill and eat them all, as usual.
Yum.
And the last one died in the Cincinnati Zoo. It was literally the last one in existence, and it died in the Cincinnati Zoo, and they had it stuffed. So we were down there to see that, film something else. And as they did show in, like they have all these different birds from different places that were like, stuffed, and they're put on like the glass displays. The coolest thing they had there was not even in a display. They just had it on their desk. It was this like giant jar of formaldehyde, and inside of it was this gigantic like talon. And we're like, what's that from? Because that's something you feel like you're going to see in Jurassic Park. And like, oh, that's a, what is it called? I don't want to say pickled. But like, you know
It's
what
a
I
good
mean?
word. Yep.
Yeah. But it's like preserved in a jar, and it's a now extinct eagle. Um, that it's not like it's the ancestor of like the harpe eagle that's down in Brazil, but it is just this like it's big enough to like pick up a medium-sized dog type thing.
Jeez.
But they're just like, oh yeah, it's just there. It's just on my desk. It's fine. Like it's just like, yeah, we just have this out here. And I'm like, how many people get to see stuff like this? Oh, they don't.
Right.
You have to know them. You have to know someone who works there and is like, yeah, we can bring you in today. Let's go.
And I mean, and the other thing too is that you wouldn't even know it's there. There's no reason for you to know it's there.
Yeah. I can add one bonus story because it's not mine. My dad is an electrical engineer. He or was, he's retired now. He's retired. He still works. But he took up he was doing blueprints for the Natural History Museum as well. He got brought down to a different floor as they're walking by stuff. He's told me this story so many times, and it's one of his like favorite cool stories to tell. So I'm gonna end up butchering it. But he can see there's really bright light coming from one room. He's hearing literally like the tide going in and out, like type thing. He can hear the like noise. So he's like, "What's that?" And the people who are walking around is like, "Oh yeah," and they just like walk him into the room, and it's like, "Yeah, this is our giant chunk of living coral reef." And it's just this piece of like coral reef that's slowly being moved back and forth just to keep it alive in there. It's like, yeah, we're just studying it right now. Why? I don't know. They just felt like I feel like they just feel like having these things.
Yeah.
But just a section of living coral reef down on a big like I wish I knew what it looked like. To me, I just picture like a triangle and then this big like rectangle on the end of it. It's just like tilting back and forth. That's all it's doing.
It is very weird to think that you can take something like that out of the ocean, put it in a building, and be like, "This will be fine here."
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
We have this scientist over here. He's like, "It's my one job." So
Yeah, reef farmer.
yeah.
No, that's. I mean, I think about that stuff all the time especially when you're in a big city, because like sometimes you will wind up in a weird situation where like, oh, you went into this building and you took an elevator down here, and then some guy led you into this room, and then you're like, how is this here?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a big room full of like, ancient bird carcasses.
Yep.
It's exactly one of those. The perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. That's a gentleman's number 5 if there ever was one. The other items on my list, there were some of them that I was like, okay, they're gonna be things you can just go to.
Okay.
But still things that made me say like, where am I?
Yep.
Where am I? How did I get here? What is even happening? So my number 4 is the world's largest cuckoo clock, which is in Sugar Creek, Ohio.
Okay.
So this was the strangest. This was on our road trip back from Shutterhound, which was in Las Vegas. We were driving back, and we were going to drive back, and we were going to make a couple stops along the way. And we stopped in Moab for a while, and then we stopped in Breckenridge, and we stopped in on the way back. One of our overnight stays was in this. It wasn't Sugar Creek, but it was just outside of Sugar Creek. And I remember driving, coming around a corner and almost rear-ending an Amish person who was driving a horse and buggy going 5 miles an hour on a road that's like a 45. And then just being like, whoa, okay, we're in Amish country. Like, all right, weird. I didn't know that was in Ohio, but that's fine. We talked about old Amish Pomish before. And that was during the podcast that when I was staying at this one Airbnb that was in this town. But we were looking for things to do, and in the next town over, Sugar Creek, they have a section that's known as Little Switzerland.
Okay.
No, all right. So first of all, you're in Ohio. Second of all, you're in Amish country. Third of all, you're in Little Switzerland. So it's like it's getting deeper and weirder every time. And sure as shit, you like turn onto this one street, and there's all these like old timey Swiss chalet style buildings lining this main road of this small town. And at the very center of it is this gigantic cuckoo clock, which it was funny. I remember when we were driving there, we were like, we gotta get there before it goes off. Like it's like 4:13 p.m. Like we gotta get there for the 4:15 p.m. cuckoo clock showing, or we're gonna have to wait to the 4:30 one because it goes off every 15 minutes.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
all day long, and the song and dance that it does is probably 5 minutes long. So for 1/3 of the time during the course of, I don't know if it ever shuts down, the whole day, this thing is just going. It's roughly, I think the story is that it used to be a restaurant. It used to be it opened in 1972 for the Alpine Alpa restaurant. And apparently it was just a big tourist attraction. And then the restaurant closed down like 15 years ago or so. And the side of the building, which was the cuckoo clock, is just still there. So there's photos of me and my dogs, Joshua and Junie, because we had them with us, in front of this giant cuckoo clock that's in the Swiss village in Amish country in Ohio. And I just remember the whole time just being like, where am I? It was just the weirdest, most obscure place. And again, not a hard place to get into. Any chump or chumpette can go there. But you just wouldn't know that it exists, because why would it exist?
Yeah. Why would this exist in Ohio? I'm currently watching a video of it.
Yeah. It's not amazing.
It's a very charming little thing. I was expecting a gigantic showing of something. But...
Yes. And when you think like, oh, this is the big tourist attraction, and like if you've been to like a Disney World or something, like yeah, you're expecting like a lot, but you're getting exactly what you picture when you picture a cuckoo clock, just a bit bigger than you would normally picture it.
Yeah. That's really about it. Why do they have one of these? I feel like this is one of the did you ever read American Gods?
No.
Okay. Those like weird roadside attractions that like this is one of them. Or there's it's hard to explain, but like they in that book they visit weird shit like this in towards the beginning of the book, and I was like, that's why I'm like, is that where I know this from? Is from this book? Granted, I never finished that book, but
definitely seems like something in like a roadside America, like just weird shit to see while you're traveling cross country book.
I can tell you, I looked at on Google. I pulled it up, and one of the first articles is from the Daily Record: a Swiss cheese statue coming to Sugar Creek. Here's the whole story.
Nah, I get it.
This was from 2021, and I don't think they got it.
The shops lining the street, by the way. Like again, if anyone's really bored and ever want to just go to Sugar Creek, just experience it. One of the shops was a fairy shop.
Ooh.
Just full of like bizarre fairy knickknacks and everything, except it was, how do you describe it? I'm not gonna say the size. It was probably like the size of like a small Walmart. At least that's how it felt. It was just like room after room of like floor to ceiling, elaborately decorated weird fairy things.
Of course.
And again, it had me thinking like, how is this here? Like somebody has to own the building, be independently wealthy. You can't make money doing this. How much money could you possibly make selling fairies in a Swiss town in Amish country in Ohio?
Yeah. It is not even, it's south of Akron. Like
it's nowhere.
It's fucking in there. It's near Columbia, Ohio.
Yeah, it was literally just the place that had the Airbnb that we could drive to that day that looked decent. You know, it was not a destination.
I might know why I know this, and now that I'm looking at a map, it's because there used to be a race we would go to in Coshocton, Ohio, which is like one highway exit down.
Okay.
So nearby. That might be why I'm like, why does this seem familiar to me?
Yeah.
Did I go there? No.
You can race around to the cuckoo clock. It's your big destination.
I also did have to look up how to spell cuckoo clock, and I forgot it's spelled cuck. Ooh.
Yes. Both the coup and the coup both pronounced the same, spelled wildly
Yes,
different.
very much so. The English language sucks.
Yeah, yes, it does. Anyways, yes, the world's largest cuckoo clock in Sugar Creek, Ohio is my number four.
There you go. My number four is this is something you probably could pay. You can pay to do. You just have to have the right tour guide. Um, if you're ever going to Sydney, Australia,
Mhm.
and you want to tour the famous opera house, don't do the standard tour. Do the behind the scenes tour. It's way more fascinating than a standard tour of the opera house, because you get to see how they bring in the different stages and stuff to like all three different sails. They walk you around it structurally instead of being like, look how big this opera room is. Um, so they show you all the neat stuff. My number four is, so they have brand new sound rooms in there. We got to be brought to the old sound room of this third sail, which is the smallest one. Um, and it's at the very top of the sail. It's a tiny fucking room. There's no bathroom like in that room relatively nearby. Poor sound guy had to like fucking walk down the stairs to get to it. Um, but it's at the top of the opera house and it's just tiny room and then you're just looking down the whole shape of the sail. If you're unfamiliar with the opera house, they look like big boat sails. I don't know how you would know what it looks like.
If you're gonna know what any one opera house looks like, it's
Looks like
probably this one.
it's probably the Sydney Opera House. But yeah, so the story why we got to see the like go up into that room instead of the regular ones because we went into the switcher rooms of the other two. While this one we had to go to the old one, it is because we went there during their light festival, which is like once a year. They do these giant like illuminations throughout Sydney Harbor, and then they also do these illuminations onto the opera house, so it has like these different patterns and moving images. It's really cool. But they also do concerts inside, and so we couldn't go to the third sales sound room, regular sound room, because Beyonce's sister Solange is apparently very private about what she does for her warm ups for her show, because everyone cares about who that is. Um, and so the person who was giving our tour was like, "But you know what? You guys paid for the behind the scenes tour. It's not cheap." And they're like, "So we're gonna take you to the old storage room, which is up here. It's a very cool view, but they won't know we're there." So, took us up there, and we only got to see. It's like it's not an interest. It's an interesting place to be, not because you can't go there, because it is at the top of this structure looking down on everything else. So like that's why it was like it's a neat place to be. It's a place you can't really go there unless you work there or you have the right tour guide to do it. So I thought that was a pretty neat place to be.
That's very cool. So,
Yeah.
do you get up there with like a rickety old ladder, or how do you actually get there?
Well, you have to climb a rope and then take a zip line across the first sail to the third. No, it's just like I mean, it's a standard type of stairs to get up there, but they are just like those like metal type of stairs walking around like catwalky type stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's really about it. There's not much other secretive to it. It's just that they're like, no, we don't use that room anymore. So
I mean, that's very cool. I've
mhm,
been to the Sydney Opera House. We actually
mhm.
did a we photographed an adoptable dog in front of it.
Ooh, there you go.
And the security came up to us and they're like, you can't photograph out here. And we were like, yeah, but he's adoptable. And they're like, make it quick.
Just go, get out of here.
Which was very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful building. It's a
Hmm.
beautiful area, just
Hmm.
being surrounded by the water and everything. And then as far as I got inside the building was actually the bathrooms that he had mentioned,
Yes.
which were stunning. I was in there and I was like, these bathrooms are beautiful.
Oh yes. Yep.
Apparently,
Uh,
people like the rest of the opera house as well, but the bathrooms top notch.
dot, dot. um, yeah, I recommend if you're ever down in Sydney, I recommend doing behind the scenes tour. That's like something everybody should do there because they also have one of the largest elevators in the world. So
Oh yeah,
to lift shit into the opera house. So because
yeah.
they can't, if you ever go see a play, they will move sets around in the back, right? And they'll take those on and off the stage and stuff. You can't do that in the Sydney Opera House, they have to bring all that shit up at once. So they're just
Wow.
like, here it is. And like they just bring up the whole set and move it there. They can't like shuttle them out as they go. These are all fun things you can learn from someone who has an Australian accent and can show you around. So
Yeah, you can't just walk in with this American accent and be like, "Hey, show me stuff." You're
yeah.
like, you should leave our country now.
Yeah.
Oi!
Oi, you get out of here right now. I'm huge Jackman.
Oh yes, that's a good one. I like that. I like just being in like or hearing about like really weird parts of very famous buildings.
I have a couple of those.
Nice.
Not on this list. Well, they are different buildings, but I have other honorable mentions of just being in other parts of these buildings.
Cool. All right. My number three. My number three is One Infinite Loop in Cupertino, California.
What?
This is no longer the headquarters for Apple Inc., but it was once upon a time. This is before they built the spaceship building.
Okay.
Yeah, which if you haven't seen photos of their new campus or whatever, just go out of your way to look up. You can just look up Apple UFO building or spaceship building or whatever.
It's this big circular building.
It's a gigantic circular building. It's fucking wild.
This is real?
Yeah, that's real. But before they built that, they had one infinite loop, and it was cool. I got to go there. So I worked for Apple in my previous life, and I was what they called a creative, which is a role that they no longer have in the Apple stores. And basically, I do a couple different things, but like I would teach a lot of people like how to use the program. So it was like private lessons and running workshops, but then also I would train the employees on like how to use their software and everything. So I would and I would also train other people on how to do my job. So I would teach people how to teach, if that makes sense. But Apple wants you teaching in a very specific way, which is by using the Socratic method of teaching.
I don't even know what that is. I don't think.
What do you think it is?
Socratic method. It is where you learn everything about Socrates first. Then they tell you, you learned all that? Forget about it. This is what we're going to teach you.
Forget about it. Here's the real stuff.
Yeah.
The Socratic method. I had one teacher in high school that did this, and it drove everyone fucking crazy because they didn't understand it or they weren't used to it. But it's actually like, I think it's the best way to teach. It's teaching just by asking questions. So like, it would be like teaching someone how to like organize their desktop.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So this, I'm teaching it the real situation. All right, so I'm teaching an 85-year-old woman about her computer. She's never used a computer before.
I save everything. Okay, I'm an 85-year-old woman. I save everything to my desktop.
Yeah, and so I would say like, oh, okay, like, do you have a desk at home?
Yes, and I put Post-it notes of where I put everything else on top of it.
Exactly. And so on your desk at home, I would say like, what are the types of things you would keep on your desk?
This is a photo of my grandson.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a sticky note to tell me where it is.
Yeah, to tell you where the photo is. It's over on the other side of your desk.
It's over on the other side of my desk. It's over here. So that's where it is.
And so this is not exaggeration. That's exactly the conversation I would have, and it would continue, and it would be like, so it sounds like on your desk, like you keep a photo that you really like, and you keep this place where you can write notes to yourself. But like, how about like all those, like all of like your papers for your tax returns and everything? Like, do you keep them on your desk?
Yeah, they're right here next to the other photos of my stuff.
And so, yes, if she's a hoarder or not very most people would say like, oh no, like I have a filing cabinet for that. Yeah. And then I could be like, oh, okay, yeah, so you have a filing cabinet on your Mac, and it's called the documents folder, or like, it basically teaches them how to use the Finder and what the documents folder is, and what to keep on your desktop and what not to keep on your desktop. And like, you just ask questions and they figure out the answers for themselves. Right.
Okay.
Because like, if I just like rattle off information at you and say you do this, like, oh, what's a shortcut in Photoshop to like to take all your layers and then merge them, to the top. And I'm like, oh, it's like Shift Option Command E. Like you're only gonna remember that for like
Who
a
knows
couple
that?
seconds.
It is right click merge layers. That's what it is.
You're you're only gonna remember something obscure that I tell you for a second. But if like we work together and you like figure it out for yourself, like that information will stick with you. And I do fully believe in that. So in order to like teach you how to think like that and to ask those questions and everything, I don't think they do this anymore because it was very expensive. They would take people of that role and they would fly them to Cupertino for a week of training, which is cool. And the geniuses who work at the Genius Bar, they would do 3 weeks of training out there. So Apple owns a hotel that's close by. It's like it's just like an unassuming like Hampton Inn and Suites. Like it's not like a big fancy. They might have a different one now, but at the time it was like the Hampton Inn and Suites, owned by Apple and set aside solely for people that Apple are flying out to visit the thing. And so what was really funny is like this was probably 2007, 2006, 7, something like that. And I had only been driving for like a year or two. I got my license really late, even though now I've driven hundreds of thousands of miles.
Yep. Getting it
But
all in at once.
yeah, but I got my license pretty late, and I think I don't know if they did this randomly or they just looked at my record and saw that I had no accidents or tickets or whatever, and they were like, okay, you're getting the Sprinter van. And everyone else is meeting you, and you're going to drive everyone from the San Francisco airport to Cupertino, which was like a couple hours. And so it was so funny. Like at the airport, I basically met up with like 9 other people. We all piled into this van, and I was like, "All right, guys, if you want to buckle up, I've had a couple drinks." And like no one had met me, so they didn't know if that was true.
Yeah.
And then we drove. So we drove to the old Hampton Inn and Suites. Stayed there and then started off our training at One Infinite Loop. This was also when Steve Jobs was alive. So there was a lot of people telling us, if you see Steve Jobs, absolutely do not speak to him. Do not speak to him. Don't look at him. Don't do anything. And I did not see Steve Jobs, unfortunately. That would have been very cool. But I did see Rojo, Ron Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah. Ron Johnson, who we also called Rojo or Uncle Ron, who then went on to almost bankrupt JCPenney after leaving Apple. He was like the what was he? He was like the CFO or something like that of Apple at the time. He was in charge of all the retail operations. And then he went on to go to JCPenney and absolutely fucking destroy their business model. But yeah, I saw him. But inside of One Infinite Loop was very cool, as you can imagine. A gigantic, like sunny, big open room with like basically doors everywhere that you couldn't get into. So first thing you do when you go in is like you get assigned like a security badge, and like it's got your photo on it, and it will allow you to open certain doors, which is basically the door to like the cafeteria and the door to like the one room that we were going to be like doing training in, and that was it. So from what I got to see, it was very cool. And the cafeteria was outrageous because it was just gigantic, and they had just everything. So like whatever you want, it's there. But yeah, I didn't get to see that much more of it, but I did think it was really cool getting to be inside of it, because like that was like, you knew that somewhere in that building that my key card couldn't open, they were like designing at the time like the iPod like Nano or something. Like someone's perfect. Down there and they're like,
putting the clip on the back. They were putting the clip on the back of it. Like, look, at the right tension to snap back. And
that was the shuffle.
No,
do you remember when the Nano came out? People lost their fucking minds.
They had one that was like perfectly like 1x1 square, like an inch, and it had a touch screen because I had one, but it also had a clip on the back of it.
The shuffle had the clip on the back. It was a little square. I don't remember it having a touch screen though. It originally just had buttons on it, but no, I remember. Do you remember the when they announced the Nano? And
was the Nano. It was the last generation.
Oh, maybe they
It was
changed
the
it.
sixth generation Nano.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, the first one when Steve Jobs was like, "Do you ever wonder what this pocket is for?" And he points to like the little tiny pocket in
Yeah.
your jeans, and he fucking pulls an iPod out of it. People went ape shit.
Whoa.
Fuck.
Oh my god, it's so small.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was a riot. Um. Oh, one other thing about that trip, which was very cool.
Hmm.
That was my first time that I got to eat sushi off of a train.
Off of a train. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love conveyor belt sushi.
Yes,
It's my
that was
favorite
like
thing.
that was like the big thing to do in the area, and so like everyone was like, "You got to go to sushi train time," and I
Mhm.
was like, normally I'm like not super social, but I
Yeah.
was also the one that had the car in my name, so I was like, "All right, let's go." Drove
Yeah.
everyone to fucking sushi train time, and I will say that sushi tastes better coming off of a train.
Yeah, there is. I don't know what it is. I think it's just a fun aspect of just being like, oh, I'm gonna get that sushi right there. I'm just gonna take that
Yep,
and just like, yep, that's all it is. There's nothing really special about it. It's just coming. It's just being delivered to you in a special way.
exactly. And the
Yeah.
best part, Apple's paying for it.
Hmm. You better believe I'd be grabbing like a. Oh no, that's like a. I don't know if that one had different colored plates. Those are the ones I usually go to. Like this is a expensive item. Be like, oh no, it found its
Oh
way
no.
onto my table. This is black rice sushi. Like,
Hmm.
ooh,
That'll be $1 million, please.
it's flaked with gold foil.
Yes, my number three, one infinite loop. If anyone wants to know more about the Socratic method, I ask you, how would you contact us?
I was gonna say find a cool like professor at a college.
They're out there.
I was gonna say how many like how many movies have been based off of the Socratic method, like meeting a hip teacher. They're not good movies, but you know.
Or what's the answer is out there if only you ask the right question.
But just tell me it.
Just tell me the
Um,
damn answer. I'd get people like that at the Apple Store as well. They're like, I know what you're doing. Just tell me. I'm like, all right,
Just tell
it's
me
this.
what it is. I just need all right. My number three. This is where we breach, I feel like, national treasure territory.
Nice.
As in, it's not that cool. 'Cause, um, my number three is this is something you absolutely, I can tell you, this absolutely is something you cannot do. Um, because they don't allow anybody up there currently.
Hmm.
I have been to the third floor of Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is George Washington's house. George Washington was our first president.
Oh.
I feel like sometimes I have to let people know because I have told people, "Oh, where are you from in Virginia?" I'm from Mount Vernon. Isn't that in New York?
We have a Mountain Vernon in New Hampshire
Yes,
as well.
there's
Yeah.
one in like every. It's like Springfield. There's one everywhere, but it's like,
Yeah.
come on. Um, the third floor of Mount Vernon. I mean, if you haven't been there, it's an old house. It was a mansion for the time. You get in there now and you're like, it's not that many rooms. It's like it's fine. But the third floor. The interesting thing about the third floor was for a long time. When George and Martha were alive, it was just storage. There was a room built up there, but there was really, I don't know who actually stayed up there at the time. After George passed, spoiler alert, after he died, Martha no longer wanted to stay in their room because her significant other is now gone. She spent the rest of her time at Mount Vernon living on the third floor in that one room, where from the room she was in, she could overlook his tomb, his first tomb. He has moved tombs. If you also didn't know, I know a lot of George Washington information. All right, That's what happens when you live near her. They moved tombs. That was after Martha died. They moved him to a tomb that they could be together, type thing. You can see both of those tombs by going and touring Mount Vernon. But the third floor, they don't allow people up there anymore. We got to go up there. I had a grandfather. Actually, basically, my mom's side of the family all worked on the mansion grounds for a long time. My grandfather and great grandfather both worked on there. They were higher ups. My mom and my uncles worked on it's no longer called the plantation, but that's what it was called at the time. It was Mount Vernon Plantation. So they worked there at the time. So since we knew people, they were allowing certain people in to go to the third floor. So we got to go up there and see. It is just an attic and a bedroom.
Hmm.
That's all it is. But I added this to the list because it is something that they don't care how much money you have. No one's going up there
Yeah.
unless you are like one of the ladies of Mount Vernon, which is Mount Vernon is not a national park. It's not owned by the government. It's owned by a foundation, which is, I think it's 50 women, one from each state. Major investors like old school money are the people who own Mount Vernon. So it's like unless you're one of them, you're not really going to get in there.
And
So
so for our historical listeners out there, our historical buffs,
Mhm.
this was essentially like, was this the first White House before the
Yeah.
White House?
Technically, I guess yes.
Hmm.
I don't know when they built the White House. I know it was burned down in 1812 in the War of 1812, which I think it was actually 1814 was when it burned down. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, that was basically the first White House. I think they started. I want to say they started building it in his second term, but I don't think he ever went anywhere. Like he just, the mansion's right here, DC's right there. It was like a day's ride on a horse, which is ridiculous to think about.
I was actually listening to a podcast about George Washington's teeth.
Hmm. They're
um,
weird. You can
yeah,
see them here.
it's it's fascinating because like everyone thinks like, oh, George Washington had like wooden dentures, and like that's all they think about. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think he ever actually had wooden dentures, but he had many sets of dentures made, and
Mm.
being the 1700s, they were not the best quality
Yes.
dentures to have in your mouth. This guy must have just been in constant pain.
Hmm.
Just
Yes.
100%. I I knock on wood, I haven't had this happen forever, but when I was in my 20s, I had a couple bouts of I would get canker sores on the inside of my mouth, but not just
Okay.
like one or two, like
Hmm.
50.
Oh, okay.
And just from like that, like anything in your mouth, like you have to eat, you have to talk.
Hmm.
Anytime you move, it sucks. It's fucking awful. Just
Yeah.
terrible pain. So just imagine like having that awful mouth pain and just having to like just take over like America. Like just be like, first of all, like a general in the Revolutionary War, and
Hmm.
second of all, like, all right, I guess I'll like lead these people in this new nation and become your first president.
Yep.
Most people would be like, I'm never speaking again,
Yes.
or they just wouldn't have teeth. And then I have an uncle with no teeth. He talks. It's just you can't take him that seriously.
Yeah. Uh, yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, that's very cool to be able to be in like a spot in that house. Do they think it's haunted?
Um, I don't know. If so, I hope not. They've been busy for a while. I would like to believe so. I believe in ghosts. I will try and not discredit, debunk whatever's happening. I will look for that first, like a logical explanation if something is happening. Like, oh my God, do you hear those footsteps? Be like, okay, well, where are we? Who's here? Was someone in the house with us, or
Hmm.
like? But I would like to believe. I think it'd be neat. Would it want to be Martha? I don't know. I think it'd be fun to see George. That's like
Hmm.
it's my number one time travel move. See George Washington. It's boring, but come on. The
No, it's pretty cool.
man was 6'3" at the time. Do you know how ridiculous that is for the 1700s?
Yeah, they were just like, all right, you rule us. You're the
Him,
tallest.
him and Thomas Jefferson. No wonder they were like the big swinging dicks for politics at the time.
Hmm. Just two giant men.
Uh-huh. I will say though, in the house there is one spot that I really do like walking around, and it's because you are in this spot, and what they tell you is happening is so George Washington didn't get dressed up in his upper bedroom. He had to take a different set of stairs down to his closet downstairs because Martha took up all the closet space upstairs. These are things that still happen in the 1700s.
Oh, yeah.
But they told us, like they would say, and it's the way the stairs are built. he's 6'3", it's like a 5'10" pat. Like that's like the clearance of that spot. So every fucking day, our first president had to walk down these stairs and go, huh? And I had to do the same thing. So it is this nice little thing to just go, oh, like, well, I get to do that at least. So, but then he had to go downstairs and he got dressed by his servants. I forget what
Yeah.
they have a new term there. I can't remember what it is.
The term that's not slaves.
Yes,
Mhm.
I forget what they use, but it is an approved term. I can't remember. So
Okay. Slaves no longer approved term.
yes, but third floor of Mount Vernon estate. So
I like it.
that's where I've been. Yeah.
I like it. I can't pronounce the name of my number two.
Okay.
Let me see if I can even. Oh crap! Did I not write it down like an idiot? Well, basically, it's the my number two is the glowworm caves, in New Zealand, and there's a couple different ones, but the one that we went to,
I want to say it's Waitomo. Just looking at it on paper, Waitomo Cave of New Zealand,
ooh,
North Island.
no, it's the South Island.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, I was hoping to not have to Google Maps this during the New Zealand. It's on.
Te Anau glowworm cave.
That's the one. Te Anau.
Sure.
I'm not totally up on my Maori.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I kept thinking that this was at the very, very southern tip of the island, but I guess I didn't make it down. This is the furthest south that we got. So it's very, very much towards the southern part of the southern island of New Zealand. It was a couple hours drive from Queenstown. But we were just looking for something to do one day, and Kaylee was like, I really want to see the glowworm caves. And I was like, all right, I don't know what that is. Turns out it's the scariest creature in the whole world.
Oh.
And not necessarily in its like you wouldn't see a glowworm and be scared of it. You'd be like, oh, look, it's a little bug. But the way that it operates is just fucking terrifying. And I always wanted to make a horror movie based on a monster that's like this. So basically, first of all, when you go into the glowworm caves, like they're in these really obscure places, so you have to drive to like a company that has like a boat, and they have to like, drive you out to this island that has this like preserved cave. And when you go in, you have to be like perfectly silent, and you can't use like, lights on your phone or whatever, super, super dim lights to keep like the ecosystem the way that it is. And they put you on this boat in the fucking pitch black dark in the cave. And then they like basically pull you along like this rope. So that the boat doesn't, crash, and then you don't drown in the pitch black dark in the middle of a cave. But as you're going down that cave, you look up, and there's like thousands of like glowing, they look like stars. It looks like you're outside and it's the night sky, and you're like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And it is beautiful until you really think about what it is. And it's that these bugs have this bioluminescence to them because they're, and I don't know how evolution works, but it's fucking wild, where they are literally mimicking the night sky, and they're mimicking that they are stars, so that the little bugs that live in the water look up and they go, oh, look, the night sky, let me fly away. And they fly directly into these fucking glowworm webs, and then they get eaten.
Ugh.
And I just, the first time that was explained to me, I was like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's like, sure, these glowworms are not big enough to like harm a person. They're fucking tiny.
Yeah.
But like the manipulation, like the fact that like this bug that has no brain, like no consciousness to it, can somehow know that like, oh, if my body mimics the stars in the sky, which by the way, they can't see because they're in a cave.
Yep.
Just like from evolution, something happened where just like, oh, you mimic a fucking ball of gas that's like millions of miles away, and this bug will fly into your mouth. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That is very crazy. So these glowworm caves, they're not exclusive to New Zealand, but there are not a lot of them throughout the world.
Mhm.
This is, I think, one of the few places you can go to, like, have like a pretty easy time of getting to one and seeing it and enjoying it. So it's not like you can just drive to Sugar Creek, Ohio to see the glowworms. It does take a little bit more to get there, unless you of course you happen to live in New Zealand. But you can go there and you can see this, but it's still pretty weird and obscure.
Yeah.
And still one of those places where you think about where you actually are in the scope of things. You're like, oh, I'm on a boat in the water, in a cave, on an island, in a lake, on a bigger island of New Zealand,
Yep.
and I'm 20,000 miles away from home or whatever. It gets more and more weird as you like narrow down on exactly where you are in the world.
Yeah.
But I know you've been in New Zealand before. Did you get to see any of these glowworms?
No, we did not do any of that stuff for it. I actually, last time I was there, I kind of forgot they were a thing. So I wasn't paying attention to it.
I'm not great about like finding those things to do. This is usually Kaylee is like, here are all the things that I want to do while we're here.
Same with Jess. Yep.
I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go do as many of them as possible. But I'm glad we got to do it because it's definitely very unique. I've never been on another tour before just to see a bug.
I feel like it'd be Jess would probably do it. It would be a hard sell to be like, hey, we're going to take a boat into a cave. And she's like, no.
Then you'll get on a smaller, more rickety boat.
She is not she's one of those people that the descent fucked up caves for her. So it's not like, not happening.
Oh, yeah.
That
God, that
being
movie's
said,
so good.
as long as she doesn't have to like squeeze into a cave, I think she'll be fine.
No, you're not spelunking, at least on the Ta'anao tour or whatever that we did.
Yeah.
No spelunking necessary. You can get there with basically any amount of mobility.
Oh,
but I think it's just worth it to see a creature that has such a weird story to it when it comes to like its evolution or whatever. And totally freaks me out. And all I can think about like is like, what if they were bigger? What if they were bigger and we did think we were seeing the night sky, but it's really just a fucking giant worm and we can just go right into its web?
listen, man, we don't need your H.P. Lovecraft eldritch nightmares coming to get us.
Oh. So that's I am curious where else in the world you can see them. That might be worth a googling.
Yeah.
Do any other bioluminescent creatures wind up on your list?
No.
Okay. A less scary version of this for people that might be interested.
Yeah.
Is there are bioluminescent bays that you can swim in certain parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One that's pretty gettable to in if you're in the States is St. Croix.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to St. Croix and that's a US owned island, and you can just go swim in sparkle water at night, which is wild.
You take like a clear kayak as well and go through
I don't think the kayaks that we took out there were clear, but we got out there and he's basically just like, okay, it's the middle of the night and we're in the middle of this bay, and he's like, now jump in the water. We're like, what? They're like, go ahead, and you just jump in. You can't see anything, but when you come up, like, the water glows with all the weird bioluminescent life. None of it will eat you, which is great. So it's a little bit less scary and a little bit more accessible, but still, if you're into something cool and weird and obscure, just going to check out some Avatar-esque bioluminescent shit.
I was gonna say that if you don't want to do that, you can just go to Avatar World in Animal Kingdom.
That's the safest way to do it.
Ride. Yeah.
That's great. So that's my number 2. The
Nice.
Ta'anao. Sorry to our Maori listeners out there.
All of our New Zealand natives. We apologize. My number 2. I've been to the pandas exhibit at the National Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean I've been inside the pandas exhibit at the National Zoo. this one is just very cool because it's if we ever we talked about doing like an animals experience one episode. I don't
Hmm.
feel like that's ever gonna happen, so I'm gonna do it now. Um, again, I used to work do much cooler jobs than just work on like edit them together. Um, so we got to go down to into the pandas exhibit to go film not a panda interaction, but a thing they used to do, which was like they would basically do what is it, panda paintings, where they would basically mess around with a paintbrush attached to a thing, and they would paint, and then they would auction those off for money for the National Zoo. Um, what what do you think of pandas? Just in general, what do you think of
Um,
them? Do you think they're cute, cuddly bears, or do you consider them like bears?
they're definitely bears.
Yeah.
They're definitely bears. I think that I wouldn't go out of my way to say that they're like extra cute.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess I don't have any strong feelings about pandas except for that
Okay.
I think they are mostly thought about as cute and cuddly when they are in fact bears.
Bears. They are bears. Yes, that's that's when I knew they were bears before. But like you do see like photos of them online with their handlers where they're you see them as cubs where they are cute and they
Hmm.
like hold on to their handlers. And then they grow up and they still kind of look the same, but they are full size bears.
Hmm.
And we were told that many times. There was a giant, like thick yellow line on the floor, and they're like, do not get anywhere close to this line. So we're filming them. They're like, do not get anywhere close to this line. Don't stick your cameras over there. Don't stick your phones over this line. Which, by the way, the line is not like us between the barrier between us and the bears. No, that's the line is the limit we can get close to the barrier that keeps the bears away from us, because they're bears and they have claws and they will grab you.
Hmm.
And we were reinforced that many times. And they are still very cute. But they are also the only reason they are doing the painting is because they get fed afterwards. So I have this one photo of them waiting to start, and it so there's also like this like the thick plexiglass, and the one panda walked up and was like looking at us, and then it like put its paws up on the grass and like on the glass and it's just staring at us. And you see, like, I'm pretty sure I have to find the photo again, but you see it's like crazy ass claws on it. And you go, oh, a panda could fuck you up. Like they are, yes, they are cute and rolly and dumb, but man. uh but yeah, I thought it was very cool to be in like these spots, and also we got to walk around in the like their indoor exhibit. We didn't go to their outdoor. They have to be in one or the other. And we're in the spot where they transition from one or the other. So we got to walk in their indoor exhibit. It smells terrible.
Hmm. Hmm.
We got to be near the bears, with that line. They smell terrible. Um, so
So were you guys filming
yeah,
for this?
we were filming for a Smithsonian Channel show. So I used to work for a production company where we did a lot of Smithsonian Channel stuff. So we went into the museums a lot. And we happened to do one thing with the zoo, and it was the pandas. So we were lucky enough to do that. And we had to do that incredibly early in the morning. Like that was, when you go to the zoo and they're always like asleep, and
Yeah.
it's because they do everything in the morning.
Yeah.
They do it in the morning. They get fed, and they're like, "I'm gonna go lay down now." So,
Hmm.
huh?
They're like, we're bears. We're we're going to, if we're not murdering, we're going to lay here.
Yes. And to lay here, I'm gonna roll around to get there. Excuse me, and just roll very cute. Do not be fooled by the pandas.
I've never seen a, well, I'm sure I've seen a panda bear at like a zoo or something like that.
Hmm.
Definitely never seen one in person. And it was only pretty recently that I saw like a real bear, like really in person. I mean, like
Oh yeah.
one ran across my backyard once, which was wild. But
Hmm.
when we were in when we were in Lake Tahoe, we were doing some filming. This is for the bonus episode of The Greatest Adventure, which be trying to put together later this month. But we were working with this dog named Chance, and we were we were shooting down a long path, and we had like like this beautiful like wide open shot, and this fucking bear just strolls into the path for like behind us. We're like, that's a bear. We should probably move. And it was like a big brown
Brown
bear.
bear.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
That's when you should be worried.
yeah. And it was so funny because they're so common in this area that there was like someone else that was walking. And we're like, hey, just so you know, like we just saw like a big bear, and this girl was like, yeah, okay. It's like
Yeah.
she's like, yep, there are bears. So, but yeah, pandas. I think that they get like exempt from like the bear status for by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you were right to be warned.
Yes. It's just very, very jarring at the
Yeah.
time, because I actually told this to my friend. I told this story to my friend a little bit ago because I didn't tell him about it, because I found like the old photos, and he was one of the people convinced that you could just like mess around with the panda bear. But like, no, man, that thing's gonna murder you and beat your face. Um,
Koala bears are the other ones that get exempt.
they
From
are not a they're not a bear.
you get exempt from the bear status.
Yeah. Well, they aren't one because you can hold them and they will probably pee on you. And they're full of eucalyptus.
Yep.
Yeah. I've held one and it peed on me.
Yes, that's what they do.
Yes. It peed on the guy before me too.
He's like, and I'll pee on the next guy too. Yeah, we got to hold one. We got to hold one of those, and then they're wild, obviously, in Australia. So we were staying at a friend's house, and he was like, "Do you want to see the bears out back, the koala bears?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, there they are, little rapey bastards. And he just kept describing them as being rapey.
They are.
They're just the rapiest bear.
That is the funniest thing about Australians in general, is because their animals they're exotic. They have kangaroos and koalas and wallabies and what's the big fat ones? Wombats. They have all these like interesting creatures. Their birds are bright and colorful. Because here in the U.S. we have deer, and pigeons, and crows.
Slightly different deer.
Yeah. It's just like, it's all these things, but then like, so you get on Australia and it's this like magical land of like other creatures, and everyone in Australia is like, fuck them. Like, we don't fuck these guys. Like, you're like, look at these rainbow lorikeets. Yeah, get these pests out of here. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah, cassowaries, the deadliest bird in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll just stroll in and take your house.
It's like, I live here now.
Yes, you do. Well, then they also do have the ones that do steal your houses, which are the huntsman spiders.
Oh my god.
The giant one.
I
Have you
saw,
seen one?
Yes.
They're fun.
I was staying at a different friend's house she lives pretty close to Sydney, or maybe even in Sydney. She lives really close to, and it's funny, I didn't know this. She was like, I want to take you to this place for this dog. It was another dog photographer for this dog photo shoot. And we stroll up to it. And I'm like, oh my god, this is where they filmed the end of Mission Impossible 2. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm sorry, that's what I know this place from. There was like a motorcycle chase scene at the end of the second Mission Impossible movie. They filmed it at this particular park in Sydney, and it was instantly recognizable. But anyways, I was staying with her there, and traveling around, I'm always looking for like different gyms to go to.
Okay. Yep.
And her husband was like, oh, I have like some weights and stuff in the garage. Do you want to work out there? And I was like, yeah, that's great. So I went out in the garage, and they have one of those like all-in-one weight machines. And I was sitting there. I think I was doing like a machine fly. And I just look over on the wall, and there's the fucking biggest spider I've ever seen. And it's reaching one leg like out towards me.
Yeah.
And I fucking noped out of there so quickly.
You big wuss.
Oh my god. I know. There's bugs of a certain size. I can't do it. There was a fly in my house once that was like the size of my fist, and I almost threw up.
You would not have handled. So I left during the women's rumble. I had to step out to take a call.
Yep.
And it was because Jess called me. So this was the second week in a row. We've had like really cold temperatures here. We had a cockroach get into the building, and luckily it wasn't one of the German cockroaches, which are the real little guys you got to worry about. It was one of the fucking honkers. Like, it's one of the big guys, and I was like, okay. I had those in New York. The big ones you don't have to worry about. These are ones that are just like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, they know they're not supposed to be here.
How did I get here?
Yeah. Funny enough, though, I was gone those 2 weekends in a row, and like she was leaving the day after I was, the first time I was there, and it showed up the first time then. which means it's just in the building somewhere. It's like just trying to get around. And then yeah, during the rumble, she called and she cornered it, and we ended up killing it. She killed it with wasp spray. But still, yeah, she freaks out at big bugs. I wouldn't freak out at big bugs. Mine's more of like, again, I've said spindly leg spiders, like really thin ones. I don't like those. But like a huntsman spider, I really like because they are gigantic and they don't mean you any harm. Like they're just like they they're if we were weird enough people, you could own them as almost a dog, because the only reason that you find them in places, like you
Hmm.
find them in their home and stuff, is because they're just trying to find like warm places to hang out. Like so they're just like, yeah, sometimes like when I knew a girl down in Australia, she would tell me like sometimes you will pull back your pillow and the huntsman's just like, oh shit, sorry. Like
Oh.
they just got to get out of there. But yeah, they do move very quick though. It's their problem. So they are big and they just
God, it sucks. Sometimes like it sucks being like when you're the guy in a situation.
Yes.
We were doing a workshop in Costa Rica, and out of like the 13, women that were there, I was the guy in the house. And so when one of the women found a scorpion in
Oh
her
no.
bedroom,
I don't fuck around with those.
it's like, oh, like who's gonna go catch it? I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got this. So sure shit, I had to catch a scorpion like under a jar or whatever.
Mhm.
And then they had these bathrooms. The reason there were scorpions is because in this house, some of the bathrooms just they didn't have like a window. They just had an opening, fully
Yeah.
open to the rainforest outside.
Okay.
Which is cool. You're like shower and you're like, I'm in the rainforest. But also whatever the fuck is in the rainforest is like, I'm in the house now.
Yes.
So I remember scooping this thing up and just like flinging it out back into the rainforest. But then I had to check my shoes every time I put them on so there were no scorpions in them. So yeah, if I like have to be that guy, I will. But if I don't have to, I'm not gonna fuck with a bug with like thick legs. Like I don't want any of that.
Damn, I don't want thick with two C's.
Yeah.
Damn.
Damn. I hate that so much.
Look at that spider walking by.
No, that fly that came into my house last year or whatever, like the flies land and they rub like their little like fucking fingers
Do you
together.
feel like you could hear it?
I could see how thick each one of its little fly legs were, and it was makes my skin crawl.
The only reason I won't like big bugs is if I have to squish them, because I don't want to feel that like when you squish it. I don't want to feel that part.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I will try and, except for a cockroach, I would kill something like that. But spiders, I try and catch them and go out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know.
I have become that guy because
Catch
I
and
have
release.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I have to be. There's some things I just can't allow to live though.
Flies are one of them.
Those flies, good lord.
They know what they did. Look what you did to Jeff Goldblum.
Very nice, very nice. I had a hard time coming up with this list because I feel like I've been so many weird places.
Mhm.
But I decided for my number one, I'm gonna go with the vaults / catacombs under Edinburgh.
What? There's
Uh,
I didn't know there was these things.
Yeah, so Edinburgh, Scotland there's two cities in Scotland. There's Glasgow and there's Edinburgh.
Yep.
And so and it's weird. When you see it spelled out, it looks like Edinburgh.
Yep.
But it's like borough, right? I'm pronouncing that correctly. Edinburgh Castle is where that's like where the Queen's Castle of Scotland is. And so actually before we went to the catacombs, we visited the castle, and I decided that it would be really funny because they have the crown jewels of Scotland there, and you can walk around and you see them. And I thought it would be really funny to like talk very loudly about what it would be like to steal them. And nobody bothered me about it, but I'd be like, we were walking around and be like, those are some nice crown jewels there. Sure would be a shame if someone were to steal the crown jewels. And just like look around to see if like someone in a big hat's gonna come tackle me or something.
The beefeater's gonna take you down.
Yeah, exactly. but like that whole section, it's like very I don't want to say like medieval looking, but it is
Hmm.
kind of like a castle town.
Yeah.
So it's very much like you're in a different time. Um, then you're like one block away from like the shopping district with like all the hoity-toity brands or whatever. It's a really interesting city. But whenever we're traveling to new places, we always look at like, oh, is there some sort of ghost tour we can go on?
Yes. Yep. Hmm.
Um, and it's like, yeah, they do have a ghost tour. And you go underneath the city into these fucking catacombs for the tour. And we're like, all right, sign us up. And so I guess they were built in the let's see, I have it written down here. They were built in the late 18th century. All right, so late 1700s, and they were originally built as like storage for like some of the businesses or whatever. Um, but like it quickly became like a place where it just got taken over by criminals. They're like, oh, like hidden shit. Okay, now we own this. So it became like there were gambling dens, distilleries, and this is where like body snatchers would like bring their corpses to sell.
Oh, good.
So like the two most famous corpse stealers were these guys Burke and Hare.
Hmm.
And this is where they did their business. They would steal bodies from the cemetery, dig them up, bring them to the catacombs, and then sell them to the medical school so that they could do autopsies and that sort of thing. So it's like definitely known for being like super haunted or whatever, but it's creepy as shit because you're already in this like old timey sort of feeling, city. And then all of a sudden you're just like, all right, now come down these like old stone steps and like, it's low ceilings and like this dank smell and it's, you just go on and on and on. Did you ever see As Above, So Below?
Yes. I'm the
Okay.
one who recommended it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I love that movie.
It definitely feels a bit like that.
Mhm.
Which sucks because for those of you that have never seen As Above, So Below, this takes place in the Paris catacombs, but they keep going deeper and deeper into the catacombs,
Deeper and deeper.
until they wound up in a place where nobody wants to wind up. But this very much felt like that to me, which like having like already seen the movie, I was just like, this sucks extra bad.
Yep.
So yeah, you can go there and you can do like a tour. It's not like something you can't get into, but it is something that like if you didn't know about it either from history books or just from like looking up information about it, it's one of those other things you wouldn't know it's there.
Yeah.
And or if you're not purposely going out of your way to like Google weird ghost tours and shit like that. And it might not be the type of thing that most people are into. Like, no, I would prefer not to go down there. But I would like to see it because like it's a weird part of a weird city that not a lot of people get to see.
Yeah. It reminds me of this is not one of this could have been on my list, but again, it's a tour you can take. You could do that in Seattle because Seattle, the city, was built on top of itself at one point. And there
Cool.
are still sections underneath the city where it's just like, yep, you just have these big, giant opening spaces and walkways of like, this is what the old city was, and
Mm-hmm.
we just leave them open for whatever's happening down here. So like that's what it reminded me of. Granted, it's not that like old style of like as you said, spookiness. This is just like an old brick ways that they used to use.
No, that shit is crazy. I mean, I follow a couple like Instagram accounts of like people that do that like urban exploring or whatever.
I used to do that stuff. I love
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that especially with something like a New York City or Chicago or something like that, where they're like, I watched one yesterday that was like, here was like a whole huge synagogue that's like under the city right now, and then if you go like into the basement of the synagogue, like here is like access ways to like the old tunnels that are under that, and you're like, holy shit, you just build up and up and up, and like nobody really thinks about what's under their feet the whole time.
I mean, it's right up there with there's a documentary about the people who live in the dark, like the old abandoned tunnels of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and they just live down there in the complete pitch black. Like there's a whole documentary series, or not series, but there's a documentary about that. And there are old tunnels underneath of Manhattan that they don't use anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and they just exist.
Las Vegas is like that, right? Because when it floods, they don't have like a regular sewage or like sewer system because like they never get any water. So on the
Yeah,
weird occasion when it floods, like people live down there, and like all their
yeah.
shit will get washed away. They'll die, like all that crazy stuff because people are like, well, it's never gonna rain down here, so I guess I'll just live down here,
Ugh.
which is wild. When we hosted a Shutterhound, our conference in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, it was like
Mm.
3 days after they had one of their like very extremely rare floods. Um, my cousin April from my number five story, she was also
Mm.
the set designer for Shutterhound, and she came out a couple days before to start setting up the conference space, and she sent me a video, and she's like ankle deep in water in the street.
Ugh.
And she's like, I don't know if we're having this conference. I was like, don't say that. Keep setting it up. And
Yeah.
we missed that crazy weather by like 2 days. But yeah, whatever's built under the ground really freaks me out. I live in rural New Hampshire. There's nothing underneath my feet right now.
That that you know of.
Ain't shit. Ain't shit out here. There's just cows and more cows.
Old Amish tunnel ways.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So now, what everyone's been waiting for, Charles, your
Yes.
number one, sir.
My number one. This is also the other thing that came to mind, and this is in the American History Museum, so Smithsonian Channel. I could give a better tour of the inner workings of Smithsonian museums than I could of the inside of the museum because I spent so much time walking around, especially the American History Museum. This one is in particular because it's not a well-known thing to the public. I have been inside the gun vault for the American History Museum. The American History Museum has not one, but two gun vaults.
Mhm.
They have one on site in DC. That is the ones where they, due to DC gun laws, even though it's a collection, they cannot store their automatic guns there. They have a whole bigger vault off campus in Maryland where they keep all that stuff. But so why does Sony have a gun vault? They go around collecting, rare collectibles that came from certain periods in history, but they are also, it is their mission to preserve things even from different wars and skirmishes and stuff that they go and get these guns from. But in particular, in this gun vault, there is one guy who works there. He is the gun historian, preserver person. He probably has the coolest job, but it's not one of the coolest people to talk to. It's actually pretty lame for knowing because he's one of the people who knows everything about him.
Mhm.
He's not like cool to talk to in that way. He will correct you on everything you say,
Mhm.
type person. But and the notable things in this vault, you're not supposed to touch anything with your bare hands. I did. I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble. But the couple of the cool things they had in there, they had even though it's a gun vault, they had, do you know who John Brown was in the Civil War?
No.
John Brown was a abolitionist from Kansas who went on to did a raid in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. It's mainly what Harper's Ferry is famous for. He went to do a raid against a Confederate stronghold there, and he did it without guns. He did it using pikes. Pikes, like the medieval weapons, like a sharp thing on the end. So they have a couple of his pikes there in the vault. But the main, like, two really cool pieces that they had there, they had a rifle from Catherine the Great, from Russia.
Yeah.
It was completely lined with velvet.
Nice.
So it's this like beautiful gun that's like slowly falling apart because it's old as shit. But I touched that one. And then the other one was they had Thomas Jefferson was an ambassador, not just for France, he was for a country in Africa. And he was gifted a gun made out of coral, and it's made out of this like red coral like baubles. So it's this like bumpy looking rifle is the way you can describe it. Made out of these like red like gemstones almost. And it's this beautiful gun. can't be used for anything because it's just a decorative gun. And it's just like, yeah, we just have one of, they just had that there. And the thing is why I thought this guy like knows everything, but he's not that cool, because he was just like, oh yeah, it's just those two things. Those are fine. Like, what are these two like your most interesting things you have here? And he's like, oh yeah, that's just Catherine the Great's gun. That's just it's a gun made out of coral that was gifted for Thomas. Yeah, it's gifted for Thomas Jefferson. They're just like, nah. Do you want to come see some Confederate rifles? But like, maybe that's what you're too excited about. And then off-site, they had a couple of like the gold. They had a couple of the. We didn't see these. These were what we were told. They had a couple of the gold-plated guns from Saddam Hussein's mansions.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see those because that would be pretty cool. See a gold-plated like AK-47. But yeah, it's a room full of just stacks and stacks of rifles, guns. They could arm half the city, I feel like, at that point. So don't raid the American History Museum. If they ever want to do another National Treasure movie, I highly advise them not going to the American History Museum. Listen, I know you want the original Oscar the Grouch puppet. It's there. It's near the gun vault. But you're going to find a war. So yeah, that was like the coolest thing in there. I can also a couple other bonus stories from the American History Museum. So the American History Museum, again, like the Natural History Museum, all you see on the floor is a fraction of what they have. To give you an idea of how they preserve certain things and don't. I walked by one of the offices back there. And one of the guys who's in charge of like the Hollywood collectibles type things, he had one of the full Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles costumes. Like, I think it was from the second movie, Turtles in Time. Just full display, just sitting in his office, sitting up in there. Like, that's what he decided to have.
That's cool.
One guy had a Batman cowl. I want to say it was Clooney, I think. Was his cowl. Clooney. Yeah, it's not that. Sometimes they don't get the good one. That's why I said it's TMNT from the second movie. I will say I did see the original Oscar the Grouch puppet. They didn't have Kermit or Miss Piggy at the time because they were like moving, not like the original Kermit, not the original like sock puppet Kermit, but like the first regular. Yeah, they moved their collections around and stuff. I think the coolest thing was, so we were there. I was in like my early 20s at this time doing this, and the people who were in charge are like older Gen Xers. So they were excited because they had a bunch of shit from like MASH there. They have the whole MASH set off site, by the way, fully preserved, but they had some of the other stuff there. And he's opening drawers, like going through stuff. He's like, here's this, here's that. He opens one drawer, quickly points out a couple things. Dead center is the Amber from Jurassic Park. And me and the other camera guy went, hold on. Like, it's not the one from the cane. It's like the one they pull out. So it's got like some of the rock and shit attached to it. Man, I have a photo of that. And I still like look at it from time to time. I'm like, it was there. It was right there. There.
That's a good topic, or top 5 movie props I'd like to own.
The Amber, but the cane. I want the cane though. God, what are the? I've also been in. So the American History Museum has a lot of other stuff. We are also in the room with the Star Spangled Banner flag, which is like one of the well-preserved rooms. That's one where we got to wear a whole suit.
Oh, wow.
We had to wear one of those whole white suit things and take shoes off and everything, because it is like well-preserved under specific lights and everything. So yeah, I used to have a really cool job working on sets. I got to see a lot of cool things. Problem is you wake up at like 4 a.m. and you work till like 10 p.m. and you have no sitting time. Yeah. So yeah.
It's no good.
No, yeah. I'm gonna like in the middle of the night, I saw the original Die Hard script. That was
Sick.
Another weird one. I saw one of the copies of Gone with the Wind, which I was like, oh. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of shit in there. They have a lot of very cool things in the Smithsonian that no one gets to see. So yeah, that's I got to see some of it.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah. But the
maybe
gun vault.
Maybe we can be the first dog photographers to have work in the Smithsonian. Actually, that's probably not true, because I think William Wegman's in there. Son of a bitch.
You would have to know the right curator to get in there, because that was so the reason why we got to see some of this other stuff was because we did a series called Seriously Amazing Objects. Wasn't the best series. It was really cool to work on the series, so that's how we got to go to the Pandas stuff. That's how I got to see, like, the gun room was a different thing, but like all the other Hollywood memorabilia was from that, where we would take people off there, and a lot of times those people were already linked to whatever thing they were doing, so they would end up donating something that would stay in the Smithsonian as well. So you would have to just know the right curator and ask them if they would want stuff. So
That will always be the dream.
Yeah.
But the gun vault's pretty cool. I want a video game where you unlock fucking Thomas Jefferson's coral gun.
Coral gun.
And you go the first shot, it just explodes and kills you.
It's a one shot. Yeah, but you got to keep close.
That's very cool. Good number one. Good number one. Very very scary to know that there many guns are just out of sight.
Yes.
Do we have fun but lists?
Oh my God, we do. I'm
All
quite
right.
surprised.
Let me hear the obscure places these fun butts have been.
Yeah. Sir, first up, if you want to submit a list of Top 5 at Desk, go to top5atdesk.com, join the Discord, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, I guess TikTok while it's around still. I haven't posted anything on there. So, first up, we have Cameron Bevins. I haven't seen this guy in a while. His number 5 is he's been to Cave of the Winds in Colorado. The caves aren't anything special, but it sounds like a fart joke.
Nice.
Yeah. He's been to the North Pole.
No shit.
Oh, nope. It's a shitty Christmas themed amusement park in Colorado.
Son of a bitch.
Open year round, and their best ride is a haunted house for some reason. His number 3, Lebowski's Tap Room, a dive bar in Colorado themed all around the Big Lebowski, including 9 different types of White Russian. One for each time he has one in the movie. Randy's Donuts, where Tony Stark gets donuts in Iron Man 2. And then number 1, Club San Diego, a gay sex club where I got a t-shirt out of a vending machine that sold dildos and lube. Good times.
Very nice. I was hoping that would be a club in Colorado as well.
I just remembered if this is Cameron B, this is Cameron Bevins, which is Cam Girl Bevins. I just realized that. Just put those together. Wow.
Good list.
Also, next up we have Roman Hamadan. No particular order. Number 5, Cadillac Ranch in Amarillo, Texas. It's pretty much Stonehenge, but with Cadillacs buried vertically. 4, Alien Grave in Aurora, Texas. A gravesite outside of Fort Worth, Texas, believed to be where an alien is buried from crash site in the 1890s.
Cool. Didn't
know that. Number 3, speaking of aliens, the Roswell alien crash from 1947. 2, Lafitte Blacksmith Shop Bar, supposedly opened in 1722 in New Orleans, oldest bar in America.
Yeah.
And number 1, haven't been. What? You can't put this on the list. It says haven't been here yet, but I'm going to he's going to the Stanley Hotel in Colorado in March.
Oh yeah, so, I've been there.
The one, yeah.
Yeah, the Stanley's very cool. Also, where they filmed Dumb and Dumber.
Oh.
Or some of it, But yeah, that place is very cool, and you got to make sure when you're going to that, if you do one of the tours, let's see, I'm trying to remember the specifics because you don't want to fuck this up. There's one tour where they do a lot of like spooky theatrical shit, and I've heard that is really, really dumb. You just want to go on like the regular kind of behind the scenes tour, not the one where they do the weird reenactments. It's like a seance or something. But yeah, that's a cool, fun place to go, and a beautiful area too.
Next up we have Dad. Number 5, he has worked at an EPA Superfund site that had tons of uranium lying throughout the whole property. Found a makeshift machete made out of uranium. I have a pic of it somewhere. Lots of yellow cake. Yeah. Number 4, got to visit Yale at the Van de Graaff. Got to visit Yale at the Van de Graaff Particle Accelerator. I also helped decommission it. Does he work with Will?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. I was like, I swear I heard that. Maybe.
Yeah, that's very cool though.
3, lived in a houseboat for a couple of months in Key Largo. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never been on a houseboat. It's very obscure.
2, drunken abandoned building adventures with William.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been through it. Mine weren't drunken, but a lot of abandoned building like exploration. One of them ones I left off my list was I went to the child's morgue that is no longer there of the Glendale Hospital, tuberculosis hospital that was here in Maryland. That was a smart move. Let's go to a abandoned tuberculosis hospital. Pretty sure we came across homeless people living there.
Mm-hmm. As long
That's
as they're
more
not coughing.
That's more terrifying than finding ghosts.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. And Dad's number 1, unescorted access through several nuclear reactors throughout the country, specifically in the reactor cavity.
That is fucking wild.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Next up, we have Menschment, Freshest of the Fun Butts. Number 5, the oldest bar in Pennsylvania. 4, the highest cabin in the Smoky Mountains. 3, a 3-person date with a handsome Massachusettsian.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
2, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 0 out of 10. Don't recommend. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And number 1, my wife.
That's, I mean, I don't know how obscure it is. You'll have to tell us, but if it's your number 1
now.
Yeah. Very
Um,
nice.
Next up, we have Bulky Mania. Number 5, Paris Island, which is a Marine Corps boot camp. 4, an MRI machine inside a trailer in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh, I hate
my
that.
my left arm was randomly paralyzed in boot camp, and I was in and out of a small town neurologist offices all around Georgia and South Carolina. Huh. You're 3, a Uruguayan's mouth. A Uruguayan's mouth.
Mm-hmm. All right.
There we go.
I mean, never been there either.
Number 2, Ray Borks, Ray Burke, Ray Bourque, bedroom. He's apparently the Hockey Hall of Famer.
Ah, Ray
Sorry.
Bouquet.
That might be closer, actually. And number 1, I made a makeshift home under a bridge in Miami for a week. I can see why homeless people do this. Nice and cool, even on a hot day. Much better spot than the Walmart parking lot.
Wow.
That is a story.
Yeah, we want to hear more about that.
Yeah. Next up, we have Mashin. Number 5, Nakagusuku Hotel ruins, Okinawa, Japan. Unfortunately, it was fully demolished in 2020.
Oh.
I don't know what that place is. 4, Vary's Love Motels in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
3, a Soviet-era military base in Afghanistan.
Wow.
2, Page Field, an old World War II airstrip. Let's just say I have done many of miles of walking there. And number 1, Cat Island in Tashirojima, Japan. I'm crushing it.
That's
Crushing this.
I would love to go to Japan one day. So many amazing spots. We just got to get a dog photography workshop going there. That's all.
There you go. Yeah. Next up, we have Gray. Number 5, the Blue Ghost Tunnel, a haunted train tunnel that was shut down in 1915. My friends and I camped there when we were in high school. Let me take a sip for water. Number 4, my wife and I rented an Airbnb that we did not realize was on a hippie commune.
Yep.
I'm tagging onto this real quick. I rented an Airbnb early on, and as I was driving to the Airbnb, I was staying there with my sister. I got the message, oh, by the way, this is on a nudist resort.
They don't tell you until you're just about to pull up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the Poconos.
You feel overdressed for the occasion?
Yes. They told us we could feel free to participate, and I was like, no. We had a tarp and like a blanket in the back of the car. We slept on top of those because I'm not sleeping on any bed that's in a nudist colony because I don't know what happens there.
Nope.
Where did I leave off? gray. Uh, 3, an abandoned amusement park called Wet and Wild. I used to go there as a kid. Weird seeing it all run down. It has since been bulldozed to build a housing development. Number 2, Highway 1 going through Big Sur was closed because of all the mudslides that destroyed the roads, but my wife and I still wanted to go there. We drove through a military base and over the mountain on the sketchiest single lane road.
Nice.
It zigzagged back and forth. When we got down the Big Sur, there was only a handful of people. I actually don't even know what that is. And then number 1, a ghost town in Arizona called Jerome on a road trip from the Grand Canyon to Las Vegas. 99% of the year there is no one there. The one day we drove through, there was some crazy bike fest. It reminded me of the one time Malcolm in the Middle where they go to Burning Man.
Man, that area of the country has some fucking weird abandoned towns or like almost abandoned towns.
When we were driving from Grand Canyon to Petrified Forest, which is you were driving across Arizona in like a fucking awful way. Actually, no, we're going down Arizona. Excuse me. Grand Canyon's up towards the other quarter. But yeah, we drove through spots where it was like you could look over and it's just a hotel that's just gone. It's gone. No reason. It's just there. It's just a husk, and everyone just went, "Well, see ya."
Have you seen the Clown Motel?
No,
I
don't think so.
Definitely very famous. If you Google like Clown Motel, there's only one that's gonna come up. It's gonna be fucking terrifying, but it's in one of those types of towns, and drove by it, not knowing it was there or anything like that. This is literally just going from I think Los Angeles to Las Vegas, and drove by it, and we're like, we're not stopping, not gonna stop here.
Nope. No, thank you. And lastly, we have Dingus Cunnilingus Adams.
Thank God.
Number 5, Castillo de Balserano, a castle in Italy used in many pornographic film productions.
Sweet.
4, Shinjuku's Pool. Plenty of sex pool porn shot here. I even left some of my bodily fluids as a souvenir. 3, the basement of a guy in Maryland who claimed to be a fish wizard. Not the most experienced, but not the worst experience, but something smelled fishy about the whole tour. Whole is spelled how you think it is. 2, I spent a night in a haunted house in Gainesville, Texas, known for having horny ghosts. Oh, we got the Dan Aykroyd experience. And number 1, the second basement of the Jehovah You Don't Want to Witness This compound. Look, I don't know why there's a small doorway in the back of the sex dungeon with rickety stairs leading to a lightless, dust-covered room with a small chair in the corner. But I've only been down there 26 times to angrily masturbate.
Well, that is obscure.
Yes, that is very obscure. That's a whole new...
Fine lists, everyone.
Yes.
Those are some good lists. The more of these types of lists you hear, the more you realize there's a lot of fucking weird places out there. We should make it our mission to go to each and every one of them.
I'm gonna go find Dingus Cunnilingus Adams' angry masturbation chair in the basement.
I still think that should be the topic of the first top 5 of death movie, the search for Dingus Adams. Which is like unravel a mystery that's like goes so much deeper than you could ever imagine.
Yep. It becomes it's a whole government plot. The psyops.
Very nice. Fantastic list, everyone. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll theoretically be coming at you later with even more hosts. I mean, like
maybe.
I mean, not quality hosts, but other hosts.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll do Matt's old send off because he's unable to speak. So from him and the rest of the old crew here, the old Top 5 of Death podcast, we will smell you later.